Everybody.
Good evening. I'd like to open September 16, 2013 meeting of the Region 12 Board of Education. I don't see Susan, so I will take attendance. Valerie is here. Tony Bedini, not here. Alan? Here. Greg Cava? Here. Michelle?
Here.
Emily?
Here.
I'm here. Kelly? Not here. Jennifer? Michael? Here. Susan?
Here.
Is here. Peter is here. Okay, so the only ones missing are Kelly and Tony Bedini. All right. Report of the chair. You had before you was passed out tonight a copy of our core values that we discussed, the board's core values that we discussed at a previous board retreat and approved. And I just want to remind all the members of the board that we do have another retreat scheduled September 30 at 5 o'clock here. And I would urge all the members of the board to come look at these core values again and work on board issues, board governance. So I would urge you all to come and take a look at these core values before then so we can be prepared to discuss them. All right? Education committee report, Dr. Castillo.
Yes, I'm happy to say that Michelle Gora, who is now the chair of the Ed Committee, Teresa DeBrito, and I met to really make a plan for the year. And I don't think, are we sharing the plan tonight? No.
I think she was going to check with the administrators
Okay,
to make
okay.
sure that the dates were all good.
Okay, but what we are doing is we are going to have an update on some of the educational initiatives that have been going on. So we've asked different people to do just a short presentation, and then we'll be happy to answer questions. So we're starting with Ali O'Hara and the REACH program. That was
Yes. So I'm here to do the REACH update. So this year we got off to a great start. We have 2 classrooms, 28 students. 15 of the students are doing the extended day program. 13 are doing the half day program. Right now they've been getting to know Washington Primary, getting to know the classrooms, the playground, how fire drills work, which has been exciting. They also have been having music class within their preschool classrooms once a week with the music teacher, as well as twice a week in the gym with the gym teacher. So they've been off to a really great start. We're really excited. We've had really good feedback from parents, teachers, and students alike.
How do the REACH children use the facility, and is there any conflict, or how do you schedule with the kindergarten? I'm thinking of they're using the playground, the kindergarten playground?
They've just worked out different times to be out there with Julie, the kindergarten teacher. So they've worked separate times to be having their recess time. So
Okay.
both classes go out together, both preschool classes go out together.
Oh, okay. And how did we ultimately do the collection of the fee?
An invoice was sent out to the families in August indicating when their first payment was due, and they'll have, their first payment was due September 1st, and they will have a second payment due January 1st.
And how many of the parents or the children require some kind of assistance, a scholarship or some kind of accommodation?
2,
And how do we do that?
using the criteria for free and reduced lunch that we use for the state.
Okay. And if, what is it, 500 a child?
The extended day program is $1,000. The half day program is $600 for the year.
Okay, so the $1,000 for the full day is for materials.
It's for instructional supplies.
What happens if they use more instructional supplies than the $1,000 will allow? And how do we do that? How do you know what is being used and the cost of that?
Well, we haven't used anything yet because we're just beginning to play. So last year, Dr. Stolman and I sat down with the teams, and the two teachers, and we determined what we thought was appropriate.
So how many kids, 28 or 26?
28.
28, so about 28,000, or a little less, obviously, worth of materials will be used for the program.
Less, but yes, the 13 of them are happening.
And like any program, if they run out of money and they need something, they usually ask the principal of the building, and the principal usually asks me, and then I usually ask Bob, and usually we can get it somehow.
Any other questions, Pete?
Yeah, so actually people from Bridgewater and Roxbury are busing their children into Washington.
Yes. Yes, we have representatives from all three towns.
And the bus comes from, is a dedicated bus?
Dedicated bus.
Okay, so there aren't any other age groups on that
No,
bus?
preschool only.
Okay, but you do have a
Straps.
monitor on that bus?
No, they have 5-point harnesses in their seats. They're specially designed preschool seatbelts that are part of the seat.
Okay, and the youngest child is 2 years, 10 months?
2 years, 10 months.
How many in that age group do you have?
2 years, 10 months, 1 2-year, 11 months, and everybody else was 3 or 4.
Could you remind us again how much larger the REACH program is this year compared to last year?
I didn't look at any of those numbers from last year. It's probably maybe 5 or 6 larger off the top of my head from last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I want to
since,
say we were 14 and 11, or I'm sorry, 12 and 11, something like that. I don't remember our exact numbers, but I can get that to you.
5 or 6?
Yeah,
okay.
5 or 6.
And since this is a significant shift, a number of significant shifts with the program, were you planning on any kind of end-of-the-year evaluation from parents?
Some sort of feedback?
Yeah.
Absolutely, that'd be
I
great.
don't know if that was normally what you did anyway,
No.
but this year in
Absolutely. We've
particular, I
gotten-
think it might
Yeah,
give you some
absolutely.
valuable data.
We've already gotten some feedback from parents as well.
I
So
just sent
the
a
email,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Absolutely. Good.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
I just want to say that
I'm sorry.
Mrs. Judd, I'm sorry, and her staff, as well as Ally O'Hara, have done an excellent job, really just including REACH in their school, and it really has made a wonderful impact, not only on the students, but on the rest of WPS, on the teachers, and they really bring a joy and a life to that building. And to see them outside playing in the playground, it really is wonderful. So I'm thrilled. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to piggyback off of that because I'm in Washington Primary School on a regular basis. And I know that the energy that they bring has been really exciting to the students as well as the teachers and the parents. So they came to our ice cream social. And it was exciting to be able, now we get to include them in on all of our activities. And so it's been really fun having them.
Good, thank you. Anything else? Yeah, all right. 2.2.
Okay, summer school. We had a short video, 15 minutes, and I'm not going to show it this evening because we do have a packed agenda. I did send it to all the board members, and we are going to put it on our YouTube channel and on our Access Channel 17, but it really gave you an idea of summer school and really the wonderful activities that the students were involved in. We had 3 classes that ran: robotics, app programming, and video game design. We had 20 students in the program from 5 towns, our 3 towns, and Woodbury and Sherman. So it's a very big success. When you see the video, you'll see the kids talking about it in really very positive light. And Sheila Gambino did a great job running it and really got the kids excited. And it was just great for those kids who love technology. So again, I can show the video another evening, but as I said, I did email it to everyone, and it will be on view for everyone else. So you can kind of see what went on during the summer program. Okay. I'm going to ask Mrs. Gallo to come up and speak about the new schedule at the middle high school and VHS.
I'm going to come up since my part's part of this.
Okay, good.
VHS enrollment, I'll start with that because I think we did far better than I thought that we would. I was hoping that we'd get somewhere around 10 kids, and I thought I was being ambitious with that for a first-year program, and we have 18. We have 2 students in video game design. We have 1 in engineering for sustainable energy, 2 forensic science students, 1 AP government and politics, 9 AP computer science A, and we have 1 local student in German and 2 AP statistics. When I say local student in German, one of our teachers, Heidi Adele, is teaching that class. So she has students from all over the place, and one of them is one of our kids. And her teaching, her taking that risk as a teacher has given us many, many slots. So I think that's just a very, very positive thing. The new schedule has been implemented. We started the school year off like a typical high school year with you know, a few kids in the office looking for schedule changes. Some of them for good reason and some of them for social-ish reasons. And that's fine, we do that all the time. The feedback that we're getting from kids are things like, I have more classes, so therefore I have more stress. I think they'll be okay. I think they're doing okay, but I'm going to be monitoring their progress to making sure. One of the items on our faculty meeting is what I heard at Peer Leadership Weekend last weekend, so that the faculty can hear the kind of things that kids have concerns about and then start to consider those when kids come up to them, as I've encouraged them to do in advocating for themselves. The schedule itself is in very good shape, and I want to say that we're going to be doing some reports about some of the fluctuations in class sizes and so forth, and I want you to keep a notion in mind. When you have 500 students and you have a good variety of electives and you have the ability to share teachers on different teams at the middle school or teach a variety of things at the high school, all of these things contribute to fluctuations in class sizes. What happens is, for instance, 28 kids in the 7th grade chorus, I believe it is. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Those 28 students impact on the schedule. And there's going to be a bigger class and a smaller class as a result. I had that when I was scheduling 1,800 students at one high school. I had that when I was scheduling 900 students at another high school. It's not changing here. It looks different because we are so small. At the 1,800 student school, anytime there was a difference of 5 in a class size, I would circle it and say, please look at this. It's not 5 here, because that's unrealistic. Because of our size, because of the fact that we're creatively and more effectively using our staff, there will be what looks like imbalance, but what really is offering kids what they need and what they want. Lots of college and career opportunities. So as far as the schedule itself, we started off in very good shape. We're in even better shape now once we've said no to the social reasons and yes to the academic reasons. And we've made our schedule changes at this point. Those are pretty much shut down at the high school. So it'll be time to give you a report, and I'd like to put that thought in your head as we do, because things look very, very nicely at the high school and certainly at the middle school. And a lot of that has to do with Karen Files, my segue.
Thank you. TV studio. The TV studio is in construction as of now. As soon as the Reach group moved out, we were moving in right behind them. If you go into the space, there's beautiful counters. The computers are here. They're ready to go in for the video editing studio. We have our broadcasting equipment being installed the week of October 12th. So our Channel 17 will become very different after that date because we'll have the ability to schedule, and we'll have just a much more robust ability for that end of things. So the TV studio is in progress. It will be happening throughout the fall, as we'll be doing more pieces to it as we go. We do have one class already, the digital media movie making class with Michael Rivera is already starting work in the TV studio. I also have a student intern who's working with me in the TV studio. So we're hoping to get kids in there as soon as we can. Chromebooks. For those of you who are at the middle school open house, we announced that our Chromebooks are coming. They will be distributed next week. We actually hope to distribute some of them at the end of this week. We're just waiting to find out how many forms we get back from parents. The mode of distribution will start with grade 8. Grade 8 will receive all of them. We'll do an orientation with grade 8. We will then go into 9th, and then 10th. So that will be how that rollout goes. And then after those 3 grades are done, we will move down into 6th and 7th and the rest of the grades. And laptops for the staff, the teachers all got their laptops. They are thrilled. It was really exciting to me because now that I've been in training with the teachers for the last couple of weeks. We've been doing Power School training. It is great to see them come to training with their laptops, with all their work on their laptops, with their grades, and then go into the classroom and teach, and then come back to the PLC meetings with them as well. So we've heard really positive things about them. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Karen, when did you say Regis, Channel 17 would be up?
The broadcasting equipment is being installed on the week of October 12th. That's when everything is going to be up and running, and at that point, we should be able to be scheduling shows.
Is that exclusively the Region 12 channel? Will it be? Oh, okay.
And actually, the other news is that I've been working with AT&T Uverse. We will be broadcasting on AT&T Uverse as well. We're incorporating them into our broadcast stream, so it won't just be Charter Communications, it will also be anyone with AT&T.
Thank you. Any questions yet?
On Channel 17, so what is being produced in the TV studio would be running on Channel 17 in a kind of loop?
Well, no, what we'll have the ability to do at that point is not just what's filmed in the studio, but student videos that are being created in the digital media movie making class, for example, will do some work in the studio. They'll do a lot of work in the video editing lab, but they may be filming remote because they're doing more fictional shorts and documentaries, which are not necessarily being filmed in the studio. But we'll have the capability to do things like broadcast live the Board of Ed meetings. That's something that we can look forward to in the future. We can also broadcast live events at the school. So as long as we have to be careful about things like plays and musicals because there's copyright issues with that. But if there is a musical concert, we can live broadcast and record it so that it can be on demand after the live performance. So things like graduation, I see in the future being live broadcast if we choose to do so.
The thing though about Channel 17, and I think it's great that the kids are going to have their product there too, but it is also supposed to be communicating, school closings, schedules, all the kind of, fundraising kind of things, and I haven't seen anything. It's just like the video
Well,
is running.
we can't do, I'll tell you right now, the system that we had in place, which is, it's about 12 years old, it's an old Avalon system, doesn't broadcast anymore. It died over the summer. So we essentially used to play a message wheel,
Yeah.
and that wheel is now dead. It won't play. So we're trying to find out if Charter can broadcast for us direct from Charter, but they have not as of yet said they would. So at that point, once we go with the new broadcasting system, that capability doesn't go away. We will still be able to offer the message wheel in between the shows. So what we'll do is we'll run a message wheel in between shows, and when there isn't shows being broadcast. And I also want to just speak to that for a minute because you mentioned student work. The student work is a piece of what we're putting on Channel 17, but if you saw the grant that I actually wrote to the state, there's also a huge component of the grant that has to do with community news. So it's not just for students. It can be used by community groups as well.
So instead of using like charters, they do have to provide a studio and some training. That's why Charter has the ability to have a license in our area.
Right.
So we're doing that instead of.
Yeah, we'll be locally doing it. So I'm actually working with Charter on this as well because they have an internship program. So what the hope is, the grant was actually written to develop a pathway, a career pathway, so that we can start students, for instance, the student who is interning with me. That's one step towards becoming an intern also at Charter. He's most likely going to also be an intern at Charter through their internship program. But the idea is that we have students here who can learn to run the studio so that in the event that we have community organizations that want to come in and film, we have trained students who can man the equipment. So it's not necessarily, you don't have to truck all the way down to Newtown. We can do that right here.
I would like to see that loop go in sooner rather than later though, because that was
We're
very
trying.
important for the community to see what the events are, not only here, but within our 3 communities.
I agree, 100%.
Regarding a solution for this, do you have the capability to do a Chiron or a panel so that all of that information that certain people are used to seeing could still be run in at the same time as any kind of productions would be?
You mean like
programmed?
wrap it around?
Yeah, either a panel that shows the, the urgent information of the closings or these kind of scheduled events, the calendar things that are more static. So as opposed to just being, maybe someone is used to tuning in for that information as opposed to watching the programming, that would be a Chiron that would run at the bottom?
Yes, you can do almost like a CNN, where
Yeah.
it's running messages
So you
underneath
can
the
keep
programming,
those
yes.
kind of closings or those kind of event schedule information.
Absolutely. And we'll learn more about it that week because we're being trained on it.
Kids will learn the program.
Yes.
There's a question also for Ms. Gallo
Yes.
about the virtual high school that you were telling us about.
Mhm.
First of all, thank you to you and your staff, because I'm sure that required a lot of work to make it go as swimmingly as it sounds like it's going so far. So thank you for that. I guess my question is for thinking ahead to next year already, because assuming that it continues to go as well as it's going, I'm sure the word of mouth will go out among the students that this is a great program and maybe you should check it out next year. How are you going to communicate to students about the offerings that are on virtual high school? Is that something that their guidance counselor is going to communicate to them?
Yes.
Is that something in the, on the school website that they'd be clicking on something to see what the offerings are?
Yes.
Okay.
2 yeses
All of
so
the
far.
above.
Yes, all of the above, and actually, one of the things I'll be sharing with the staff tomorrow is when I went to the peer leadership weekend on Saturday at Silver Lake, I go right at the end when they present the ideas, the plans that they've come up with, and they present them to me. And one of the plans that they presented to me is that they would like, I write a weekly update to our teachers that keeps them informed about things that are going on in the school. We don't waste time with those things at faculty meetings. Kids would like to see that as well. And I have the email addresses now with the school email addresses. It's very easy. In so many clicks, I can email every student at Chippewa Valley School. And I'm going to be doing that, not so much for the younger students because I don't think it's necessarily developmentally appropriate, but certainly for our older students, they'll be getting regular, not weekly, but regular emails from me. And that would be part of the information that would be included in them. So every way we can communicate, we're trying to develop more and more.
Do you see that as, when it comes to scheduling, which it sounds like is always a nightmare in general, do you see that as making your, the schedule easier, or just one more permutation in what is already a complex task?
I don't really count VHS as a part of the schedule itself because it allows us to do things that we would never be able to do in the schedule. Something like, game design or video engineering. In a school of this size, it's some of those courses that may become popular later, but getting them started is a very different thing in VHS because you actually can run a course with 1 or 2 kids in it. And it is efficient. And they can do it, the more motivated student can do it outside of the school day. Other students take advantage of time within the school day to get their work done. So the flexibility with VHS is endless, but I'd be disingenuous if I said that had a huge impact on the schedule. Although, 18 less chances for a schedule problem, right there. And if we wind up with more next year, that's that many more students who are satisfied without having to worry about the static courses that you take, AP courses or honors courses. We have more singletons, or probably almost as many singletons, as we have courses that we can offer 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. So the impact is, I have to waffle on that a bit because I don't want to make claims that aren't true.
Did you say anything, Karen, about wireless network? I just saw it was on the agenda.
I did not. It's on the agenda, but Vic Vicenzi is having surgery today.
Oh, okay.
So he will report when I think he's at your business meeting next. He'll be
Yes.
here. That's
Okay.
that's his realm, so I
Yeah,
want him to
that's
give
right.
that update.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Thank you all. 3.5.
3.5 it comes from Pete, who has asked us to just have a little discussion, and we do have a little time, to talk about including community members in the school system. I don't know if you want to just
Well,
bring
not
that
quite
up.
community members. What I have experienced over the last 30-some-odd years that in our 3 towns, we have some very professional people in the fields of arts, science, music, actors, actresses, politicians, ambassadors, playwriters, movie screen people, very famous people live in our 3 communities. They never seem to be integrated into our curriculum for even one course a semester. And it seems to me that these people have valuable experiences that would be good to put them in the class for a day as an adjunct to a teacher who may be teaching a course relevant to what they do. Each town has these people. You meet them at cocktail parties and things of that nature, but they have very valuable experiences, and they are professionals at the top of their fields, many of them. And I thought it would be good to have a discussion among the board members. How do they feel about speaking to the staff? I know we have an ASAP program, but I'm talking about during the daily curriculum, you have a musician to come in, a professional musician, to talk to students about their field, the musical instrument that he plays, what they do in general as a musician, professional musician. You have actors, actresses. There are many aspects of the people who live in our 3 towns. I think their experiences would be very valuable to students in our school system. So I thought it was something to discuss. I mean, it doesn't have to go anywhere tonight, but I think it's worthy to discuss about whether we could employ these people once a semester, twice a semester, whether the staff could even integrate them into an arts class or a music class. But these are very valuable people, and the knowledge they have is tremendous. So I thought I'd throw it on the table and have everybody discuss it.
Greg?
There is some precedent for this, actually. We have done this to some extent. A number of years ago, when I served as one of the Chicago musicals as the music director, we had some dance work that was done. We had 2 people who operated a dance studio in town who were Tony Award-winning dancers from Broadway, and they actually conducted workshops for the kids in the performance. And so I've seen that done. We've done it in our programs where we've involved members of the community who have specialized services. It's not unheard of.
Dr. Cassino, you have any thoughts on this? This is something that
Well,
could happen?
I definitely think that the principals do use people from the communities in their programs. I can say I don't have a concerted effort on it at this point, but Mike just told me about a speakers bank and maybe starting that and maybe getting a committee of people who want to reach out a little bit. To people who want to get a little more involved in the schools. It's certainly, we're certainly all for it. I mean, there's nothing negative about it.
I think the idea is a great one. The Speakers Bank idea is that you just formalize it so that, sometimes teachers may not know what resources we have in the district. And they could go to, for example, a website, and it would have listed if they were interested in somebody coming in to speak on dance. It would list to see if there is anybody in the town, what grade levels they would be comfortable speaking with, if they had any limitations in terms of their time, like what time is morning best for them, afternoon, topics within their area of expertise, like maybe they are really an expert on jazz but not tap, that kind of thing. So I think it's a great idea.
Does anyone think it's a bad idea? That's not something that the region should be getting into.
Let me just, one question I have for Pat is the extent to which this is something that would have to be really more of almost an offer to teachers of, do you have, you'd have to really explore that carefully. You really don't want to drop something in the middle of the classroom that's going to disrupt the ability to deliver the curriculum over the term of the thing. So it would have to be carefully thought out, more of a resource, I think, that could be offered. Because in certain areas, particularly the arts, it could be a very, very helpful thing,
Absolutely.
but it might not quite work in other things.
I mean, last year WPS had an arborist who came and the kids were hanging from trees. so with teachers. And, you know, it was wonderful, and that was a volunteer family, he had a certain skill. I know that Mrs. Gallo and the high school staff uses a lot of experts for senior project advisors, for technical assistance, et cetera. You know, and so I think I think we have to formalize it, you know, and start with first people who are willing to volunteer, get that list going, whether it's a speaker bank or volunteer bank or expert in this area bank, and then start to talk about it with the principal. So I definitely we will get to it. I can't say it's going to be in the next week, but we'll definitely get to it.
Yeah, I mean, my point was that Justin suggested in concert with speaking to staff members whether it's even possible to do, and if it was possible to do, it would take a lot of work just to organize a structure to get the volunteers who are these professional people, since many of them are on the road, they don't live here full time. But I think it would add something to the school itself.
Sure.
I mean, it's something, you know, that would enhance the reputation of the school system.
We also, I'm hooking up, we're hiring an alumni coordinator as a stipend position who's going to start organizing and formalizing Chapaz Alumni Association. So that's certainly a good way to get people who have graduated and their expertise. So there's a lot of different ways we can look into it, and we will.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. Anything else? All right, item 4, superintendent's report.
Okay, I'm just going to go out of order a little bit. Personnel, we have hired our last 2, knock on wood, staff members, as far as I know at this point in time. We have Marcus Oates, who is going to be a technology teacher at the middle high school. And we have Kimberly Harrison, who is going to be a college and career coordinator here also. So their pictures and information will be in the newsletter this week, and we're very pleased to be able to get 2 very enthusiastic educators, so we're very happy about that. As we move now, I see the selectmen here. I wanted to share, Karen is going to put on the June 17th video. I wanted to just reiterate what I said on June 17th, because I think at the last meeting it was, it just needed to be heard again. And then I have asked the town leaders if they would speak to what is on our table, the referendum, and the work at the middle high school, and give the board a chance to ask them questions, because I think at the last time we heard from them in June, they had to leave, and I think people had questions. So after we just see this, it's 2 minutes, and then I just want to share, before we put it on, I also want to share, Bob had to leave, but I gave you a memo, which I don't have in front of me, from Bob, who had correspondence with the bond council. And if you just got it tonight, if it's right here, it's from an email. If not, we'll get, Sue, you gave them to everybody, right? Oh, did I give them that? Oh, Bob probably took them. Oh, he took them, okay. I'll make more copies. 1 second, let me just tell you what it is. Basically, it is stating that you have to be, you cannot authorize spending without a plan. So you cannot go out into the future and say you're going to spend money until you have a specific plan, because, and if you read this, and Bob can explain it better than I can, it will have an impact on your rating, it will have an impact on the town's credit, you will not be considered, it has an impact on your tax exempt status. You cannot spend, this board cannot spend future boards' monies. So if you read this, and be happy to make copies, maybe Mrs. Gallo make copies.
I have 3 copies right here.
Okay, and maybe you want to make it for people in the audience also. And Karen, if you'll just play that, I think it's important that you hear this, because I just wanted.
Someone who has sat in the election in the about this option.
Make it louder.
What they liked about it most was the flexibility. And although it sits here that it's going to be 49 million, it really can be less based on what work we need to do now for this building. When we did the original plan for this building and asked Castle Booms for a recommendation, it was out 20 years. So what the selectmen liked about this option was that we don't have to go out 20 years right now. We can go out 5 years. We can do what we need to do to get accredited by NEAS, make sure that our science labs are where they need to be, do all the ADA work, and then after that point, once the new building is completed, which would be 2017, you would have another 5 years of population reports. You would have the opportunity to see how many students, if need be, will fit in the new building. Can middle school move there? Can you possibly build another extension? Can you tuition out? It leaves you with a lot of options. So that $49 million is really a very, very high number, and it would be much less if that was the option that you took to a referendum.
I'm sure. She's really prepared to say that.
Yes, I am. It will be, well, let me just ask Anthony one question. Anthony, you told us before, well, how much is just the building a new pre-K to 5? 30 million. Okay, 30, so it's about 30 million. So I am confident to say that it would be no more than $40 million. I am confident to say that if we looked out 5 to 10 years with the work that we've done, because a lot of it was work that we needed to sustain this building for 20 years. That was option 1's job, and that's what Castle Blues gave us. But we can phase that in, and we can make bigger decisions once you phase in what you're going to do at the elementary. It's just a conversation that came up. I'm just trying to give a point of clarification. No, I just want from someone who is...
That's all. So I just wanted, again, I just wanted to share that because I think, you know, in the heat of things, people get a little, I don't know, excited. So I just wanted to share that I did bring that to the table. The work on the middle and high school, when it was proposed as 20 million because it was a 20-year out, and that was our ability to compare all of the different options. But we always knew that the board would have to make a decision on how much work they wanted to do. So with that said, would you like one of the town officials, want to say? Town officials?
Well, the three first selectmen are here.
Yes.
Would you like, I saw you folks had met, would you like to address the board? You want the board to ask you questions? I don't.
Lady friend, you want to gather around the podium?
There we go.
I think that the issue, if I may, that,
Yeah.
and I don't want to misspeak, but the issue that the board was trying to deal with, we have, from what I understand, a number for a new K-5 building of $23 million. Is that right? Approximately 23 million.
That's net of the state reimbursement.
Okay.
That's the difference between $30 million before
I
and
understand.
23. State
And
reimbursement.
so the question is, if the board is trying to come up with a number to put out to referendum, what will that number be? And we've been presented with, from Donald Leary, 3 different sets of numbers. One could be $1 million or $1 million some odd dollars that we could invest in this building and put that on, add that on to the primary school number, or $3 million some odd dollars to do some more repairs and add that on to the primary school building number, or the full $20 million and add that on, which would be, get us out to the $43 million. It was pointed out that some of those numbers, the $20 million numbers, included, for example, roofs on this building, which we don't need because the roofs that we have are in shape. So that's the issue we're dealing with, and so I'd like to, I guess we'd all like to hear what your perspective is.
Just to refer back to what we presented to the board in June, we looked at option 2B, new pre-K to 5 elementary school to Fog Valley Middle High School campus with a schedule of the projected costs for middle high school repairs. And I think that it's reasonable to, my personal thought, okay, I can't speak for either of these two people, but through this whole long-range planning thing, we found that there were a number of variables which are just that, variables. And through the work of Anthony Amato, who, was questioned extensively, and I don't think anybody came up with anything that could really dispute what he laid on the table. Part of this exercise was to address escalating costs of education in the region. And his studies, which were very in-depth and very detailed and I think very accurate, was that we didn't come up with any option that flattened it out. It was just a matter of how steep it was going to go up and how fast it was going to rise. The only option that was really lowered that curve a substantial amount was to start tuitioning out high school students. Personally, I don't think that's what the people in this region are ready to do. So what's your next best alternative, okay, to try and flatten that curve somewhat? And this is what I feel is the best alternative. I think the other half of this is the variables. We have a projection for year 10 of enrollment. We had a projection for year 10 8 years ago that was different than what the reality of today is. And I think it would be naive and putting your head in the sand if you were to sit here, any of us were to sit here and say that we knew what it was going to be in 10 years. I think that we have to put forth a plan that is going to address the educational needs of our students at the most cost-effective way for the next 5 to 10 years. If you were to decide tonight that you were building a new elementary school, you wouldn't be in it for at least 3 years. And we're not going to decide tonight. It's going to be, you aren't going to know how this is going to work if we decide to do that for 5 years. And that's the point in time when you're going to have some concrete numbers. You're going to know more in 5 years than you know today. And by year 8, you're going to know more than you know at year 5. So I think that this board, I'm hoping, and that's why that we should look at present to the voters to see if they would support K through 5 elementary school for the region and address the needs of this facility that will continue to provide a decent education for our middle high school for up to 10 years. Now, I know that you mentioned a 1 year and 3 year, 5 year plan. I don't know if anybody's looked at. I went through that list.
1 million, 3 million, 20 million.
Yes, which are like different time frames. I went through this list and there's a number of issues in there that are replacing floor tiles and, like you said, doing a roof that doesn't need doing. So I think it's a responsibility of the board to schedule of the projected costs for the middle high school repairs. And that should be something that I would hope you're looking ahead 10 years to.
All right, well, with all due respect, and I don't know if the three of you are going to be on the same page, but with
I'm
regard to
sure
you-
we're not.
All right, then at least with regard to you, Mark, what does that mean? What number are you suggesting go to referendum? I think the board did decide in June that it was going to put to referendum the question of a new K through 5 building and repairs to this building. And the issue that we're struggling with is how much are we going to ask the public to support with regard to repairs to this building?
And I haven't studied what would be required to repair this building and carry it forward 10 years, but that would be my recommendation. And I don't know what that number is.
All right. Anyone else from Mr. Lyons? Okay, thank you very much. And please don't leave.
I won't.
When I left the table, I don't know if I was at this meeting or not, but I must have been because I went through the long-range plan. But I think that when the 3 selectmen were asked, we did all agree on this question of 2B. The dollar amount that was in my mind was $49 million. And because that was what was told to us, that was going to be the number to put out. And obviously over the summer, that number has changed. and there are different categories right now. The 1 million, which I've just learned about, the 1 million, the 3 million, and et cetera. But because I remember that it was 20 million to bring this school up to what, the standards that it should be. So that was the number that we had all agreed on. It was 49 million. And the reason it was is take this to the people and let them vote. I have been on, and so have they, enough of these long-range plans. One, I was on Save Our Schools for 18 months. We just came through this one again. And it just keeps going around and around and around. And if we don't get off center and vote on something, we're just going to keep going around and around and around. So we had a town information meeting with our 3 representatives from Roxbury last week, and I, again, thank you for coming. I don't know that people felt that I know what's going on when we left, but I couldn't stress enough. Please put something to vote. That is what we had asked for. And lately, it doesn't appear that we're any closer. You obviously have to put a number out there. You know what, if you think that you can come up with a lesser number to get there was the science labs and different things for $1 million, it went from 20 to 1 million. So I'm questioning that too. But somebody's got to come up with a firm number of something that we can get done and take it to the 3 towns and let them vote and then move from there. But I do remember 49 million. And I did not go to any meetings over the summer. But Pat, it's right there. And you know what? I could have been dangerous. I could have been glazed over by then. But you did say that the numbers could be different. I just don't know if I was at that meeting or not.
I agree with Barbara for the most part. But we studied this chart. I went through a lot of these charts. The one chart that made some sense, and a follow-up chart along with it. And we looked at all these charts to try to figure out where we were going. This is your information that your people are giving us to work with. The Board of Finance chairmen, first selectmen are working with your information. And we counted on it as being real. I did. I counted on it as being the real McCoy. We looked at all of the options that we had. And the 2B was a gain of $6 million some dollars over a period of 22 years. Tuitioning was a $70 million gain over 10 years. And we find out later that in fact that's double, really 142. We find out that the current configuration is not 27 million, it's 20 million. And in our last meeting, we find that you can fix this building that was crumbling under our feet for 1 or 2 or 3 million. So our real study, when we got done that day, and we took the vote, and we went through a lot of meetings, a lot of time. As Barbara said, my main reason was to put a vote out there. Whether it's 49 million, it's 40 million, 45 million, whatever it is. We thought this building was going to put back in terrific shape, and you're going to have a new small building here for the young people. That's what we thought we were getting for our 49 million. And the people of Bridgewater, Roxbury, and Washington need to vote on that. You need to hear what they say. And here we are 4 or 5 months later, and we also when we made that motion, we said we'd like to have it happen right away, this summer, so that we don't lose time going forward because of interest rates and other things. And if you have to back up and punt and come back with another number later on, with 20 million, and let's leave this building for 10 more years, well, that would have been fine. But you wanted our advice, we gave you our advice, you made a motion to go with our advice, and now you're back there. That's the way I look at it. And I think you shouldn't do that. You should put it out, get a vote. You gotta take a second look at it, in 3 months, do it. The one thing thing I was disappointed in this chart was you had option for tuition out middle school and high school. And I'm one of the people that kind of believe that down the road, tuitioning, if our population stays the way it is, or drops, we're going to have to start doing some tuitioning students. I don't understand why they didn't give us a number for just the high school students. The older students going out probably would have an easier job, an easier task of getting in with kids in another school at high school level rather than middle school. But we didn't get that option. All we were given was middle school and high school. That eliminates this place. I guess you could sell it, what they'd use it for, but you could sell it. There's 100 and some acres of land here. But as Barbara and I both say, and I think Mark agrees also, that we need a vote. We need to hear from the people. It's gone around the table long enough. Last week you certainly went around and round and round. I don't know where you got, but when I went home I was confused. So I hope you put something out, and I hope you put out 2B as planned, and let the people vote on it, and then back up and punt, if that's what you've got to do.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Valerie?
Well, thank you very much for coming out this evening, and I think basically, I mean, the board has taken your advice with 2B. I think it was a matter of, was it a 49 million or was it not? And I think we kind of went through some re-education, because it was my firm impression that we were talking about a major reconstruction up here, as well as building a pre-K 5. 49 million, give or take. Numbers, of course, need to be really figured out by the architects as we get perhaps an approved referendum. That number now has been chopped in half, but I do believe for good reason, so that the total package is going to be much more palatable with the pre-K 5, and I know we're going to be going into those numbers in another week or so and solidifying what's going to happen up here. Because indeed, we don't need to put a $4 million roof on. This roof is only 13 years old. We can't and we shouldn't bond money for certain repairs that aren't going to happen for some long, long time. So the laundry list, I think, is a quality list, but certainly is less, which would make, I think, this project a lot more attractive, at least to some members of the community. So I'm looking forward to that. We did pass a resolution at the June 17th meeting. We are going to be going forward, as far as I know, as soon as we figure out the actual number for this school. My question to you is that how important was that higher number for the school in coming to your 2B? In other words, did it change your mind? Did you take the lowest option that seemed reasonable? The fact that we were dealing with $25 million for this school as an add-on to every combination.
Well, I'd have a question back at you then, because what I heard last week is you're not going to do anything with that septic system down over the hill, which has been talked about for, I've been here a long time, probably too long, and I know I'm going to be leaving, so you won't have to hear from me much longer. But I've been hearing about that septic system for a long, long time, and I guess we're probably going to wait until the frogs are on toilet paper instead of lily pads before we fix it. But are you going to add the new building to the same system? I thought that's what I heard.
No.
No.
No, and we had this discussion at the facilities meeting tonight. What our director of facilities has told us is that the septic system we have, despite all the discussion and talk and everything that's been evaluated, is not in need of replacement now. It will eventually be in need of replacement, and that's why in the Castle Booth study, see the big disconnect on the Castle Booth study is the Castle Booth study was not prepared to give us a guideline of what we need to do to repair Ridgewood High School. What the Castle Booth study was designed to give us was some idea of the expenses we may encounter over the next 20 years if we were to keep the school. The purpose of the study, the reason the Facilities Committee did it, was we wanted to know, in order to help evaluate the options of building a new school, we had to evaluate the option of doing nothing. And so part of the evaluation of the option of doing nothing was what expenses will we incur probably over the next 20 years. And so that's what the Castle Blues study was. It was not a roadmap of what we needed to do to the school to repair it and put it in fine shape. It was a roadmap of what we were going to get.
But didn't you give Castle Blues some direction
Well,
as to what you wanted?
Well, you got to understand, when that study was ordered, not 3/4 of the way through the long-range planning process. It was ordered before the long-range planning process because the facilities was looking at those issues anyway. We were trying to get a sense of where we were going so we could start to plan, because facilities was frustrated over things like the constant increase of expenditures over the pool that we had to deal with from time to time. It was a frustrating process to not be able to look forward. And one of the things that our director of facilities has done has been to look forward, has been to try to keep an eye on things, to try to get ahead of the curve, to try to figure out what needs to be done. That was part of that process, knowing that long-range planning was coming, and we'd have to figure out what was the cost if we kept the school and did nothing. That's really what it was. It was not a roadmap for what needed to be done to put the building in proper order. And one of the problems we've had, and one of the reasons, I know it's frustrating, one of the reasons why we are looking more carefully at the numbers, and it's been difficult, is as we sat down to plan a referendum as to what the number is, you've got two problems. One, you can't just go to referendum on $20 million in improvements and then not spend the money, right? If you're going to go to referendum and you're going to take that money down in the bond market, you've got to spend it. The opposite side of the coin is you can't go out there and put up bonding capacity for $20 million worth of stuff that you're not going to spend in the near future. Which is the other side of the coin. The problem with that is because it'll result in the bonds not being tax exempt according to bond counsel. And that's a major problem. That will well increase the borrowing costs. So the difficulty is, as you actually sit down to put pen to paper and say, what are we going to the voters with, you've got to have something that's going to get a positive result from bond counsel. So that's why this inquiry was made. And we realized that we can't go to, it's just impossible to do $20 million. So what you have to figure out is what are the things you're going to do, what do you need to do, what are things that would be nice to have but you really don't need to do, and then we can come back with a finer line thing. This isn't about cut it there, this is about getting to something that you can actually get approval from bond counsel for. Otherwise, what's the point in putting it to referendum?
Well, I'll tell you, go ahead. My concern is when you say we're going to come back, is that coming back, all right, you're going to fine tune this, you're going to come down to a number, if it's $1 million, $3 million, and then you decide, you know what, we're going to do another $5 million, and you know what, we're going to do another $5 million, and that you keep coming back to the challenge with another referendum to spend that money. And so eventually, in the next 10 years, you are up at $49 million. You got to make a decision, where are we really? And I understand not wanting to spend the 49, all of us, the 20, or whatever it is, all at once, because in 5 years, we may have to be turning and going on a different road. But I am concerned about if we decide we're not going on a different road, that we are going to end up at that $49 million down the road, and we're going to be spending more than that. So these numbers have to be real, and they have to come soon.
Yeah, but we understand that, Barbara, but the problem...
I got another question for you. Now that we've got this current configuration down to 1.5 or 3 million, what does that do for the charter? Option 1 said 27 million we're going to spend, capital expenditures. Now you're only going to spend 3 or 1.5.
I don't know.
What does that do?
I don't know what we're going to spend, but what it's going to do actually, the less money. See, the problem you've got is that if for example you were to go 5 years in and then decide you wanted to tuition out the high school or re-regionalize or do something else to change the picture, what that's going to do is it's going to reduce your expenditures. Your return is going to be all the greater. It's going to make it more valuable in return. But from day one, it is going to impact the numbers in that chart. But what we've got to do is we've got to get to an approvable, something that there's no point in submitting something to the voters if before you submit it, bond counsel says, I can't approve this. Because you can't go out to bond on something the bond counsel won't do. So what this exercise is about is trying to sharpen those numbers to things that are possible, that can be done. The other thing, don't forget, if we were to go out and say, okay, we're going to get to 20 million eventually, so let's bond up 20 million, that 20 million is gonna come off of your, the
We know that,
town's
we don't want to do that.
capacity.
We know that you can't do that.
Right.
We're not, I'm saying at the end of the day, down the pipe, is it gonna be the 49 million? I don't want you coming back every 5 years to the town to say, well, I might not be there for 5 years, but we need another 5 million, because we're gonna now do the next thing. And another 5 million, and another 5 million, and in 10 years you find out that you are at the 49 million, which was the original number. That's all I'm saying. I am concerned about coming back, coming back, coming back.
And I'm all set, if you wanna borrow 3 million at probably going rates, and that's it. We probably don't have to bond that.
Kelly?
Do we have numbers and a detailed plan for a full renovation of this facility? I mean, not a repair, an incremental repair, but a full renovation of this facility done as most renovations are done, pretty much. We start on day one and a certain number of days it's finished. Do we have that plan from someone? I'm hearing that the Castle Blues plan was really not done for that purpose.
No, we don't.
Do we have that kind of a plan for renovation? Because I think that that's what the public has thought that we've been talking about, a renovation of this building, and not getting back into the business of incremental repair of buildings that are long
Kelly,
overdue
we
for
talk
repair,
about that.
which is the kind of
We do.
business we've been in with the elementary schools for many, many years. So are we going to renovate? Are we back in the business of incremental repair? And I think that the public might have strong feelings about both those solutions, and we should be clear about those in our referendum language.
Greg?
We did it, on facilities, we did discuss that. One of the frustrating points is you can spend probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 to $25 million renovating this building. And you know what you're gonna have in 30 years. In 30 years, you're gonna have a 70-year-old building that's gonna need even more work. So it probably doesn't make sense to do a complete, utter renovation of the type you're talking about of a 40-year-old building that with its useful. It probably makes more sense to tear it down and build a new one. And that's what we've decided we didn't want to do after the long-range planning process. So there you have it.
Anything else? Peter? I'm sorry, yeah, Peter?
What I would say to the selectmen is the facilities committee has not brought to the committee of the whole their recommendations for a plan to go forward. Without that recommendation coming from them, we have nothing to discuss, debate, and until that happens, you're not going to see anything. I mean, to be quite frank, I mean, you have paper with figures and proposals. The facility committee, this is the first time I said, listening to the committee, it's obvious they've got a lot more work to do to bring something to us to look at, to give to you.
So you asked us here tonight for that.
Well, I didn't ask you here. I'm not sure why you're here, because to be quite frank, until we have a complete plan from the facilities committee to debate amongst ourselves and discuss, how could we give you anything?
Well, there is a list, and it is 20 million.
All right, well, that's what I'm here. That's why you were invited. We're trying to determine if you're fixed on that $49 million number or not. It sounds like at least two of you are. Lauren?
I did ask that the building committee be part of our meeting tonight for all board members, but we did have a building committee I sat in on at 5 o'clock. And indeed, under new leadership, we're going over it line by line, A, B, and C plan. And we've been able to cull out unnecessary work. It will not be a renovation. It will be, though, extensive repair. My question to you, and of course this board then will be sitting with these numbers, but in basic outline, from what I am hearing and from what I'm recommending we do, would you still support 2B with whatever the cost is for the pre-K5 building, which we believe is going to be about $23 million to build up here, and support a 20-year bond for, give or take, about $10 million. So it would be 2 projects, 1 referendum. Is that what you see supporting? The good news is, we're not talking 49 million. We're talking somewhere in the mid-3s, the 30 million. So is that something that you would support if that number to repair up here, repair, not renovate, is comprehensive enough? But we're not throwing money away. i.e. $4 million for a roof we don't need, would you still support 2B?
So you're just coming up with that 10 million?
Thereabouts, and it does what it needs to do.
I think that's premature. I'm not even
Yeah.
sure we're that
That's
close
just
to the
picking
number.
it out of the air.
No, it isn't actually picking it out of the air. I mean, we spent 2 hours going over some numbers. It definitely has to be refined. But you're talking 49 million per project, it would be less than. And you would still like to see us go forward, obviously.
I want you to go forward. I want the people to be able to vote, but I also want the people to understand what they're voting on, how long this money is going to be, is going to carry them through, and what are they getting for it.
Yep, good,
Absolutely.
great.
I go back to 2002 when we were talking about renovating new pre-primary schools and we were being told we had to put classrooms on. And now we're being told that the schools are underpopulated. So I think it would be unwise to invest 20 million or 25 million or 29 million, whatever the heck that number is, in a renovation of this facility when in 10 years we may not have enough students to fill it.
Right.
Right? But in the interim, right, you got to do something. Because that was the reason this whole long-range planning thing started, was that everybody said we can't keep following the path we're on, okay? I feel.
Are you okay with spending 23 million
I
on
say,
a pre-K school?
yes.
But
I am.
you're not worried about that one being full?
Well, that's the point, though. If you let me finish, I'll get to it. Okay, all right?
Good to see somebody else, Victor.
I've only got another month, so.
Well, then be quiet.
Go out fighting.
I think that it would be prudent for the region to look at what is going to provide a cost-effective, good education for our students for 10 years. Because maybe 2014 is going to be the opposite of what 2012 is, or 2022, or whatever, what the hell's 10 years from now? Gee. But anyhow, I think you should look at this facility and know that you're going to be in it for 10 years and do the work that's required on it to provide a good education for a middle high school for 10 years.
Good, thank you. Very helpful.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Is there anyone else from the board? Alan?
Well, I missed that, should we ever answer the question that Bill Stewart brought up about how this all relates to option one. I mean, it's all well and good to say that these studies and these numbers were arrived at for our benefit in making certain calculations prior to June. But now that we're getting real, in effect, they no longer count, and that's why we have this whole chance to reassess them. But if that's the case, then option one goes down to roughly 3 million, which is a lot less than 27 million.
And the other half of option one was, what are you going to do with your current primary schools? Do you think you're never going to have to do any work on them for the next 10, 20 years?
There was no other half on option one.
Huh?
There was no other half on option one.
I know that. But if you're going to present that as, if you're going to put that in a chart, you better figure it in.
But we didn't, is what I'm saying. What we have here is something that we use to make our decision, which you use to make your decision.
Exactly.
So,
Correct.
so.
But you're changing the numbers.
About
So
that.
if you're going to change the numbers, you better take all of the numbers into account.
Well, then we need to do that. That's what I said last week. If we're changing the numbers, then we need to change all the numbers, in which case we go back to square one. We don't just choose to change the numbers now because we no longer like the number that we chose as an option. It's almost as if everything was reinterpretable to a point, and then we solidified it, then we made a choice at that point, and then once that choice was made, it all became redeterminable again. And I think that's what Barbara and Bill are talking about. It's like, when do we ever have anything that is an actual number that we decide? We went at this based on 22, 25 years. Now we're saying, okay, 10 years. So what if we don't like that number? And I think we need to nail this down. We need to answer certain questions. If this is now 3 million for option one, then I guess we need to add, as you said, the choices for the elementary schools, which are in a lot better shape than this building is in at the moment. Any one of these that say renovation or repair on here have to be reassessed. And is that what we want to do at this point? We really want to go back to drawing board for another 9 months and reassess all these numbers?
Why is it a quick calculation, I think?
All right, hold on.
A quick
Michelle?
calculation.
Well, I think that's missing the point of what this chart was for, because the chart was to look at the payback. And so I think everyone is understanding that the list of $20 million was needed over the 20 years that we were looking at. But that didn't mean that we needed to spend it all on day one. And so that's where we're grappling with. So this was an economic look out. And I don't think anybody here is saying, well, we're not ever going to need a roof. We're going to need a roof sometime in the next 20 years. It's just we don't want to bond the money now for something that we don't need. So that's where we're struggling. How much do we need to repair this building? How far out should we be looking for this bond? And what makes me nervous about what you said, Barbara, but I completely get it, is that you don't want us coming back every 5 years saying, okay, now we need $5 million for this. But when we're looking at repairs and things that aren't broken yet, but we know are going to break over the next 20 years, I mean, I guess the only other way to not keep coming back every 5 years to fix the roof or to fix the pool heater, which is working now, but probably won't be in 6 years. The only other way to do that is to put money aside up front, and we can't do more than the 1% for the capital. So we have, our hands are tied on these repairs. We were
Can't
given
bond it now, anyway. You can't bond it now
Right,
anyway.
so that's why we're trying to figure out, it wasn't disingenuous. We absolutely believe that Castle Blues told us we're gonna need to spend $20 million on this building over the next, whatever, 20 years, but we don't need to spend it all up front. And so we're trying to figure out exactly how much we need to spend up front, and we were trying to figure out where your thinking and intentions were, because the $49 million was the total. But it wasn't not intended, that was a capital expenditure needed for 20 years. It was not intended to be the number on the question. So what we're trying to figure out is how far out do we feel we should be looking? How much should we be repairing? How committed are we to the middle school, high school? I hear Mark saying 10 years. That makes a lot of sense based on the population. We look at things. I don't know, but that's why we're grappling with that 20 million, because we can't do it all at once.
Greg?
A couple of observations. Barbara, there is another way. I agree with what Michelle said, everything Michelle said, but there is one more way in which you could not hear from us for a long time on capital improvements. And that's if we build a pre-K to 12 building on this site, a brand new building for the entire system. You will have something that probably won't need a lot done to it for 20 years. But absent that alternative, every time we go to the alternative of let's not build a new building, let's repair it, I can tell you right now, we can't promise you what we're going to have to come back with in the future, because this is a 40-year-old building built in a time that was not exactly the garden era of building, okay? And as a result, things are going to happen here because of the techniques and construction things and what have you that we're not going to be able to anticipate. So if you want the absolute sure bet that we won't be back to you, you build a new K-12, pre-K to 12 school on the site. Now, here's another observation. You can't look at this chart. And you cannot look at this chart that's been waving around with the colored lines, the red, yellow, and green lines, and say, this is how much we need to spend. That's not on this chart. What this chart will tell you is how much capital you're going to have to invest in the long term in order to achieve this. It's going to tell you what your rate of return is, whether it's positive or negative, and what it is, whether or not it's ever going to be paid back, and what that timing is going to be for the payback. This is a financial analysis. This is not how determines how much we need to spend. Because no matter which alternative you picked, if you picked option 1, you would not be going out to bond this year with a $27 million bond. You wouldn't. But over 30 years, that's what you are, with the period of the study here, that's what you would be investing. Same thing for this. It says 49 million, but 49 million may be the number you have in front of you, but that's not the number you're going to go out to bond with, because you can't spend all that money now, and our bond council has made that clear. And so the thing with this chart is, if you got 49 million as the idea, that may be the ultimate cost, but that's not what you can go to bond with now. So no matter which alternative you pick, the number you go to bond with is going to be different than what the total capital investment is. I mean, similarly, you weren't going to be coming here to invest the total amounts of each of these up front. But this is what the cost was going to be, because this chart was part of a study aimed at trying to figure out over a period of the life of the bonds, plus the life of the construction project, which ends up being about 30 years, could have easily been 31, what is it going to cost you and where are you going to be? And that's what this is for. So now we're at the stage of putting pen to paper, and we've got to come up with something that's workable. That's all there is to it. And I suspect that workable number could be on the middle high school, could be anywhere from somewhere at the low end of maybe $4 or $5 million, and at the high end, what Valerie's talking about. But I don't think you're going to you could possibly go out to bond, based on bond counsel's advice, for $20 million now.
We know that.
All right.
So it's going to be somewhere in there, and we are working on it, and we've got our director of facilities and our director of finance. We're finding these numbers. I hope to, within a week, have a better idea of what these numbers are going to look like and have something that we can put on paper with reasonable degree of expectation that these are what we probably have to go to bond with. And then we'll have something. And it's not like we're going to do it 20 months from now. We're talking about a week from now. But we just didn't have the numbers. The numbers had to be hashed out, worked at, picked through, and we will be able to do something.
I look forward to hearing them.
We have a couple of chairmen of the boards of finance. I'd like to give them a chance to have anything they want to say.
Yeah, thank you. Dennis McDonald, Bridgewater. We're asking the community to make a big commitment, and it's not only a commitment to change, okay, with the potential consolidation, but also a big commitment for financial. And I think that we need to be upfront with them and let them know what we believe the full, okay, cost of the project will be from soup to nuts, and not piecemeal it out, or let them know only what the bond will let us tell us to know. The bond will only allow us 20, fine, but we got to tell the people that in 20 years it's going to cost you another 10. We can't just hide behind, okay, the bond advice. Okay, we need to disclose to the community what the full amount is going to be. And when I entered into this vote with these ladies and gentlemen here, I believe that I was voting on to be not even a number of 49 million, but the number to get full project completed, not a number to get it half done. And whatever that number might be, it should be. But I agree with Barbara. We don't want, 5 easy payments of $10 million a year, and shipping and handling is extra. What we are getting is wait, there's more. And so my intention of the 2B was to tell the public what it was going to cost to do it right. I don't think 10 years is right. 20 years maybe not right. I think someone moves into this community to bring their children to this school district, okay, as one primary reason, which means they've come into this community to spend at least 15 years here, okay? And any conditions that we put on renovation or repair or whatever should at least have a minimum of 15 years, because that's what we're promising the community people, okay, that come into this town that we're offering. Region 12, great school, great education, great buildings for the duration of their child being in one of these 3 great towns. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The goal of the long-range planning committee was to come up with a realignment idea that would reduce costs and improve education. Option 2B is the only one that comes close, and the only way that it can meet those qualifications is if you put a reasonable number of dollars in the referendum for this building. I totally agree with Pat that right now, we don't know where we're going to be in 5 years, let alone 20. 5 years from now, we will have much better enrollment projections. We'll have a better feel for what similar regions in our area may be doing with their underemployment. And maybe we would even know what the state of Connecticut plans to do with small regions such as ours. Your idea, what you're talking about, you're coming up with the amount of dollars that are really needed for this facility to get through. I like 7 or 8 ideas, but I'll go with Mark for 10 years. That may be more reasonable. It's absolutely your decision. It sounds like the building committee is working on this to come up with what we really need to do to this building to get us through, say, to 10 years. Because 5 years from now, we're going to have a much better idea where the region's going. Are we going down to 500 kids, 400 kids? Are we going up? We don't know now. We can't decide what to do for the next 20 years today. Let's get through the next 5.
Oh, wait, there's more.
There's more? I will add one more. Thank you very much.
Thanks for reminding me. We're done.
And when you are coming up with this number, please keep in mind that if this were to pass, the entire 1% fund could be used in this, for this building, which last year was more than $200,000. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anything else?
Before Alan.
Gives his political speech.
Go ahead. I don't appreciate that, but we'll deal with that some other time. Well, I really don't appreciate that. We'll deal with that some other time. This is the heading on this is what is our best economic investment? So we have to make this choice. And I appreciate we're dealing with a time frame that is liquid. But the point is, whatever we have used to make these decisions, apparently we feel we don't need to tell the voter. So if we have made our decisions based on numbers that look like 22, 25, 23, then we are then planning 20 years. Now, if we're going to change our minds about that and plan for 10 or 7 or 15 years, that's fine. But then we have to make sure that whatever we know is going to happen in those 15 years is part of what we offer the voter to make their decision. And that's been my issue with this, is that we keep saying that anything long-term that has dollars involved is only for us to make our decisions with. Yet when it comes to the voters, we're only going to let them know the dollars involved in the short term. And that's but wait, there's more that Dennis is talking about. And I think that's the waves that Greg was talking about last week. So if we're now really changing everything, and we're considering changing our moment of prediction to 5 years, well, that does reduce our long-term planning quite a bit. But then it also makes option 1 look pretty good, because we're not going to be spending $20 million on a pre-K to 5 school, not knowing what's going to happen in the next 5 years. Will it be too big? Will it be too small? Will we be able to afford to have any school system at all? So if you start saying that we can't even look out 20 years, all of a sudden we're drawing into building a brand new building with only 5 years concrete predictability built into it. That's one aspect which is a little upsetting. The other upsetting is, and maybe we're not really serious about this, but I just heard it, is this whole thought of a 40-year-old building being dispensable. Or the thought of that we suddenly have to build new buildings every 40 years because it's too expensive to maintain them. And this really isn't just our problem. Every single town, every single school system has this problem. We have these board retreats now that an attorney and the chair of the Berlin Board of Ed is leading us through. And he said they had the same problem there. When it came time to deal with the fact that every school system somewhat, I don't want to use the word neglect, but defers maintenance on its buildings because of the effect on the budget. Every school system then gets to the point of, oh my God, we have a lot of time to make up for here, and all of a sudden it is going to hit the budget. Or there will have to be a bonding referendum. And that's where we are now. We're at the point of, we could have done more over the last 40 years to this building, but we didn't. And it's not our fault because no school system wants to do that. But now it's time to start swallowing that bitter pill. And for us to say, you know what, why don't we just build a new building? Is really unfortunate, because is that the mindset that we all have? Once our buildings are 40 years old, they're no good to us anymore? So that's what I'm saying, is if we're not prepared to look out 20 years, then I can't imagine why we're starting to build new, only looking out 5 years at this juncture either.
It's not that the buildings are in disrepair. You've got a whole other thing with the economy and the number of students. I mean, the people are leaving the state in droves. That's a whole other equation, another piece that has to come into that equation of whether your school building is good or not, good enough or not. So just that, we've been, that all of the school districts have been derelict in their repairs That's not the only issue.
That is
You've
a
got-
separate
you've
issue,
got
yeah.
a-
That
you've
is a
got
separate issue.
heck of a
That's the
lot. I don't
expense
envy
issue.
you, let me tell you, I don't envy you.
But the
All
other-
I can, you know what, you gotta refigure these numbers, and you gotta refigure them, and they better be good, and then you bring it all, and you let the people know what is going on, so they know what they're voting on. Yes or no?
Know what's in store, yeah.
Whatever it is, then you can move forward.
I just want to say something, and I don't mean to put words in Alan's mouth, but the insinuation, or if it's being stated that there's been no repairs to this building over the years. We spent a lot of money on this building over many years, and we're dealing with an old building that's aging, but we have not neglected this building.
So where we are now is that we have all, June 17th, accepted your recommendation of 2B. Whether there was a number that was too high or not, some of us thought that that was kind of written in stone, now it's not. That number, I do believe, will come down, but the work will be appropriate. So that's where we are now. 2 projects, 1 referendum, numbers known, probably much less than 49 million, thank goodness. And all I want to know is, what's your advice for the board? Should we have a standalone, or do we have to, have a standalone question to the public to reconfigure the region, and then follow it up, if it's positive, with actual numbers? Or should we just present one referendum question with numbers, bingo bango?
Get an answer.
Just
And
one
then, you know
referendum.
what, whatever, if it goes down, then you come back with something else.
So we don't
Get
need to ask
an
the
answer.
question first, we just
You
proceed to the
can't keep
number.
clouding the issue. You
Great.
just cannot keep doing that, because I'll tell you what, people are confused.
I think
We're all
rather-
confused. And we'll work through the whole thing.
I'm not, I don't know if you can, the reconfiguration is an issue that has to be voted on. And I don't know if bonding to build a consolidated school constitutes answering that question. So,
It may have to be that it's separate
Yeah.
questions on the same ballot.
Right.
Do you vote to reconfigure? If so, do you vote to spend this money? I mean,
that's.
I assume
but
it's something
to-
like that.
To Alan's point, Alan, I think we have to, whatever goes before the voter has to be explained fully. Whether it's, we're spending 8 million out of a potential 29 for the middle high school, that's gonna get us to your, however you present, I think it has to be explained fully what they're getting into. Okay, and you're right, I agree with you on that. I don't think you should just say, well, here's your question, it's 42.5, and you're all done for 20 years, because we know that's not true. So I think that this whole deal with, whether it's 1 million or 29 billion for this building, you have to lay that out there when you present it to the voter, okay? The other thing is, every region, every district, not just regional schools, every district this side of the Connecticut River is wrestling with this enrollment or declining population. And all I know is what I read in the paper, but nobody has been able to come to an agreement or bite the bullet or take the big step to address what can we do for the long range. I mean, you got Litchfield and Wamogo are less than a half a mile apart and they can't agree on anything. You got Thomaston and Terryville are sharing athletic teams, but they can't reach an agreement. We got, New Milford, they're emptying school buildings. So until, my thought is that, 5 years, 10 years, somebody's going to be ready to make a bigger decision than what we're, and address it in maybe a more logical manner.
So I just have a.
And maybe it'll be
Get back to
tuition,
what Valerie
maybe
said.
it'll be a super region.
But you know what,
Who knows?
getting back to what Valerie said about re-regionalizing and asking, if you educate the people enough and well enough on the question, on that one question, they will understand that that is a re-regionalization of the school. And so you should
Yeah, but
have it one question.
If I may, that will be dictated by bond council. They are going to tell us
That's right.
how it has to be done.
Right.
I don't know how it has to be done. You might be right, it could all be in one question. I presume, although I don't know it, so bond council will tell us, they will direct us how the questions have to be framed, whether it
But
can
you're
be.
saying, 2 questions.
preference is
So
one.
you want to consolidate, yes or no? Okay, but so if yes, And I could tell you, I sat through some of these bond meetings on a question that ended up being an advisory question, I don't know how many years ago. You can't have all these different questions. The people understand that, yes, we're going to pass consolidation, then they have to understand that that is changing the educational.
I would assume there's got to be a question, do you vote to modify the regional plan? That's got to be asked. And if it can then be, you know, and in so doing, do you vote to spend X dollars? Again, I don't know if it's going to be one question.
Yeah, I mean,
or
it's
two
up to
sets. I
the
just don't
bond
know.
council, but.
Kelly?
Yeah, on the same subject, I've heard it stated, or the idea floated a couple times, both last week and tonight, that there might be a possibility of putting a general question out there. Do you agree to amend the regional plan? I don't think that's going to fly on its own merits. I don't think you can keep it open-ended. If you read the Supreme Court decision, it's really what we're doing is we're specifically amending a plan that voters agreed to long ago, but it's a voter rights issue. We have to respect their wishes in configuring this district, and if we change things, we're amending the plan just as if we would amend the Constitution. It has to be very specific from the way I read it. It can't just be a carte blanche or a general, do you like the idea of changing the plan? Would you say yes to that? So we need to be very specific in what we're going to do with the plan if we're changing it.
What we would do, without speaking authoritatively, I mean, we've looked at this in our lawyers, we would have changed the plan to modify the requirement that there be a K-5 building in each town. That generally would be the question. Michael?
Just to second the need to really do one vote. Every time that we require the towns to do a vote, it costs each town thousands of dollars. So more than one vote really would be wasted.
I'm not saying 2 different nights or 2 different days, but maybe 2 different questions at the same time. But I don't know. Again, bond council will have to direct us. Is there anything else? Thank you all for coming.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Appreciate all your work. It's not
Can I make a
easy.
request?
Yes.
Sitting public last week, 3 people came up to me afterwards and said, we can only hear 2 or 3 of the people up there at that table, including myself. I hate to wear hearing aids, I don't have mine. Michelle, I can't hear her, almost not a word you said. And Kelly, when you're talking that way, I can hear you. And people back there can't hear you. I think we could get microphones. We probably could afford that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. We noted.
All right.
Yes.
All right, so moving on to item 5 of the agenda, discussion of repair work for Sauk Valley Middle High School and consider it appropriate to approve repair work to be completed. Am I hearing from the Facilities Committee meeting tonight that we're not prepared to go there, but that you hope to be prepared to present something to the board in reasonably short order?
Yes.
You are correct. Then I would suggest skipping over item 5 tonight. Okay, then item 6, opportunity for the public to comment on agenda items. If everyone who wants to address this.
Yes.
Sir, if you just stand up, state your name and put down your phone.
My name's Leo Null. I'm from Bridgewater. In listening to both previous meeting and this one, I'm asking the question to myself, you're saying that this school needs repairs. At the last meeting, you said you had some open wiring violations, there were some other things that had to be done, but you were given some time to resolve the issues. I'm just curious, you got a maintenance budget, and every year, I know, I can speak from experience on this, but why don't we just address the issues as they come up, instead of waiting for them just to continually add up, and then have to have them bonded? The other thing is, if you know you have all these repairs to be done at Chappaqua, why aren't we going ahead and strictly addressing the bond, strictly for those repairs alone? Handle the one problem, and then treat the next issue, which is the pre-K. I don't understand, they allow you to get additional bonds. You're trying to do everything at once. It seems like you're making the burden extremely hard on yourself. To me, if you can bisect the problem and deal with one issue at a time, it seems like something will get resolved. instead of constantly just keep chasing after the next issue, the next issue. It doesn't seem like you're really accomplishing as much as I think you should. The pre-K, I'm used to seeing, my job, I just finished retiring from Danbury. I know everybody's going to say, well, Danbury, you know, it's a city, it's different. No. We've worked on buildings that were 80 years old, 100 years old. There's so much that you can do today with the construction products that we have. There's no reason why you can't take care of the school that you have and add on to it. There's so many different ways to get modifications and to go ahead and accomplish what you want to, just by having the right person tell you what has to be done. I've dealt with Castle Booze many times, 3 times in the last year. I've had a new school built in the past year that we waited 5 years to go ahead and do something with for Head Start. We finally knocked the building down, built a new one, and then schools that we closed, we opened them back up again because same problem. We knew about the census. We thought we were going to be losing students, and at the last minute we found out census was wrong. We just went through school facilities review, and we put additions on 4 schools. So I signed the permits. They're underway right now. To me, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, you have schools right now, you're worrying about what's going to happen in the next 10 years. So why don't you just go ahead, resolve yourself to fix what you have, and wait and see if any of this turns around. The referendum, I keep thinking about how many times we've had the same problem over and over again. We go to referendum, Bridgewater has said constantly, we're not in favor of a pre-K through 12, or I should say through 5, but we keep coming up with the same thing. We vote, and we vote, and we vote, and I don't know if you're trying to wear them down or what, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think you have to take a look at the way the economy is, make up your mind that you have to deal with what you have. You have to fix what the problems are here, take care of it, then go on to each one of the schools, do what you have to. Look at Burnham. You sunk all that money in, and now it's like it didn't even exist. Now you want to come up here and have a new school, and I'm saying, why did we put that money in there? And we've done it before. I take a look at Booth. I went over there. I was appalled when I saw Booth. To me, somebody needs to go ahead. No offense, but you need to go ahead and get professional help. You didn't need a project manager because you don't have a project in front of you yet. You need to go ahead, whether it be Castle Booze, I can think of quite a few different firms that I've worked with, but my point is, you need to get somebody on board, you need to hold them by the hand, go through each school, and come up with a list. And once you get the list, then you can get an idea as to what it's going to cost. And if you don't have plans, I don't see how anybody's really going to take you seriously. But I don't mean to insult anybody, I'm just saying, this is not handled the way it should be. And instead of arguing, I think you need to break it down and handle one problem after another. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Tom Singer from Bridgewater. I'd like to say that I'm surprised to hear that the numbers are changing again, but I'm not. I sat through the long-range strategic plan. I listened to all the numbers that were given. Resource 15 changed, Resource 14 changed. Now this is changing. When we sat through the long-range plan, we were given all these numbers to make decisions. The number was 23, or it started at $19 million for this school. Then it was changed to 23, and the words that we heard verbatim were, this building's crumbling beneath our feet, we have to fix it now. Now you're coming out saying, oh, you know, we don't need to spend 23 million, it can be 19. Well, the problem is you had a whole bunch of community members together to make decisions. You gave them misinformation once again, and now all that time was wasted as far as I'm concerned. And I'm just appalled that this is where we are right now.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved.